Hello, it's Saturday, March 26th, 2016, and as of this recording, I'm still depressed, but I'm not dead. Hey everybody, welcome back and thanks for listening. I do appreciate the listeners that I do have. I see on good old Libsyn there. I've been downloaded 31 times. I would suspect probably no more than 15 of those are me. But to the other 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of you who are out there, thank you so very much for listening. I have gotten a little bit of feedback on the show, and I love all the information that's coming my way. Please keep it coming. I'd really love for this to be a collaborative expression of our fight against mental illness. So, ideas, topics that you'd like to hear me talk about. I'm still not in a position yet really to give out a lot of, shall we say, therapeutic advice. I am still learning quite a bit, and of course, seeking proper medical attention is the best way to get specific advice that you do need about your particular condition. But I'd love to open up any kind of communication back and forth. Really, I get to a crossroads every time I'm going to do a show. Should I do this? Should I do that? I wonder, does anybody want to hear what I have to say about this? So please don't be bashful. Send me an email at depressed.0.ded@gmail.com. You can hit me up on Twitter at depressed__ded. So, a little recap, since the last show, I have stopped going to that day program that I had talked about on a previous show. I have decided that the cost benefit of that program wasn't where I wanted it to be. And I'll get into that quite a bit more, maybe on another show. I feel important that I put it out there that I'm not dropping treatment altogether. I'm taking another route. I am going into a DBT therapy, dialectic behavior therapy, which I've taken classes on that, and I'm very familiar with it, but I didn't realize there was a branch of therapy that I could go to for that, and I think that is going to be beneficial for me. So again, to make it very clear, I'm not dropping treatment. I do have a plan of continuation. So, anybody out there who maybe is in a situation where they don't feel they're getting the best that they think they could get, or what they really want out of their therapist or a program they're in, don't go cold turkey. Have a plan, have appointments set up before you stop what you're currently doing. It's very important. We all get to a point where maybe we feel a little bit better and think, oh, I don't need this. I'm going to stop taking my medication, or I'm not going to go to therapy. Don't do that. If you feel like you want to get off your medication, talk to your prescriber about that. See what they think. See if there's a way to kind of titrate you off. In other words, kind of step back away from your medication as opposed to going cold turkey. So again, I've changed the route I'm taking in my therapy, and I am very important. I'm not stopping treatment. So please, anybody who's listening, don't think I'm advocating being cavalier and dropping out of a program or a medication treatment just because you think you're not getting the most out of it that you want. Have a plan. Talk to those who are involved with your current plan before you switch over to something else. And like I said, I will get into the reasons for that on another show. But for this show, I have a topic in my head that has been bouncing around since about the first or second day of the group that I just left. And I really want to get it out there, or get it off my chest, out of my mind. So hopefully you guys think this is a worthwhile topic, and we'll get right into it. So I started out the program a week ago, or 2 weeks ago almost, on a Monday. We're all anonymous when we get there. We introduce ourselves, and you kind of get to know people a little bit just from hearing them talk throughout the program in different classes, things like that. Most of the folks there are a whole lot more social than I am. I believe I've touched on it that I am the most socially awkward person I have ever met. True, like wallflowers, people who are like painfully shy that I have seen who won't kind of come out of their room when you go to visit at their house. I've seen those people hold better conversations than I have ever held. So, I'm not that kind of person. I don't, we want folks to go to lunch. Hey, you want to go to lunch? No, I'm okay. I'm good. But invariably, you get to know people as they talk about their days and their whatnot, what's troubling them. Just in that kind of first hour of kind of group therapy that we had at this particular setup. And listening to people talk, I was surprised, I guess maybe not surprised, but I was struck by how many people were anxious about returning to work, not because they were unsure how they would kind of get back into the swing of things, or, for a lot of folks, work is a stressor, so that kind of increases the likelihood of them having some kind of episode, be it a depressive episode or an anxiety-ridden episode or whatnot. So I kind of got that, but the thing that was kind of, I don't know, again, kind of stuck at me was how many folks were out and hadn't told anybody at work other than maybe their HR why they were out. If they're on an FMLA, obviously, the Family Medical Leave Act protects you in your privacy as far as what you need to tell. And basically you need to tell nothing. It's confidential. In my case, through HR, they knew, but I didn't have to tell anybody else. Folks who were just out using their sick time, maybe personal time, maybe just a shorter kind of leave. These folks, they're not protected that way, but they still have their right to privacy. They don't need to tell anybody. And this kind of came up in one conversation where this one person who was just out on days of absence, so personal days, sick days, and in their situation, it was crazy. There's that word. So in this situation, is an amazing opportunity that they had, that other people at their workplace could donate up to 25 sick days to this person, which I think is fabulous. And kind of real community there at their workplace, that, hey, you need some more sick days. Geez, I've been working here for 20 years. I get 6 weeks a year and I can't possibly use all that. Let me give you 2 or 3 of mine. And that was amazing. That was fabulous. But this person was really concerned because there were a few folks at work who were trying to contact them to find out what's going on, why are you out, this and that. And they were really kind of uptight about it, naturally, understandably, to the point where they kind of blocked their phone number on their phone so they couldn't text them or call them. And it came up in a discussion, just what I had said, that, so that's the difference. If you had taken an FLMA, you could go to your boss and say, hey, so-and-so is really bugging me. You need to tell them to stop. And by law, I believe, they will do that, and you're protected by law for your privacy. And other folks who were out of work and again hadn't told anybody, maybe 1 or 2 key people or close folks they were close to at work, but they, in general, no one knew why. And I started thinking about this, and this is something that came up with me when I took my leave and then had my suicide attempt and passed that. And I just wanted to talk about that just a little bit. I was very fortunate, the company that I worked for, and I guess I'll just come out and say I worked for Home Depot, and they are in no way paying me advertising fees to mention them on this show. But Home Depot is a fantastic company to work for. Their kind of employee outreach and employee assistance and their everything that they offer up to their employees is fantastic. So after my suicide attempt, and I changed locations, I'll say, I came out to where I am now to be with my then girlfriend, now wife, to kind of work on me. It came about that Home Depot has a thing called the Homer Fund. And this is an opportunity where either you can go and ask the company, hey, I have this hardship, can I get some money? And you can possibly get some money. Also, there's a matching Homer Fund where the store can raise money for an associate, and then this Homer Fund matches that at, I believe it's 2 to 1. So, hold a bake sale, have a garage sale, raise $300, bang, the associate gets $900. And it's really, really fantastic. And I've seen it work great for folks who have, had a house burned down, or were in a car accident, no longer had a car. So we raised money to help them get fix their car, or maybe get something new. Single moms, single dads, all that kind of thing. So this was available to me. I was still technically on a leave. I was still employed by the Home Depot, and my store decided to do this for me, and I was flattered. I was honored. I was very grateful. And they asked me, would you like us to do this? And I said, sure. And I made the stipulation, though, that I wanted, so what we would do with it, we go back to the break room, there'd be a sign up above the time clock. And usually it'll say something like, hey, we have an associate in need, we're raising some money. Occasionally it would say, hey, Joe in lumber, his dad died and he doesn't have money for the funeral. Can we raise some money? But I wanted it to be clear when the sign went up for me that it included my name, and it included that I had depression. And I asked them, I said, if you can't do this, then I don't want it to go up. And my thinking of all that was that this was an opportunity for me to maybe indirectly reach out to other folks in that building who may be suffering from some sort of mental illness, who are afraid or reluctant or whatever, to get that information out, maybe even to seek help because they didn't want that kind of stigma about them. And that is something that I have been pretty big on, is trying to get that stigma out of there. So I asked this, and they said, sure, we can do that. And, the next day, I guess the sign went up. I asked a friend of mine, hey, can you take a picture of the sign and text it to me? And she did. Great, really good friend of mine who's helped me out quite a lot. And for sure, the sign didn't have my name. I guess I can't remember if it had my name but didn't have depression, or didn't have my name or depression, or something. And I called the store and I said, hey, look, it's got to do this. It's got to say these things. I wasn't expecting much money to be raised in terms of a windfall, right? So it wasn't that. I wasn't kind of pandering maybe to get more money. And I explained to them, I want this to be there. I want people to see that this is a real thing and this affects associates in the store. And the response I got was, well, the store manager wasn't comfortable with putting that out. I thanked them. I said, oh, okay, well, give me a little bit. And I contacted the district HR and I said, hey, look, this is the story. And I understand that the store manager may not be comfortable himself personally with putting this information up there, but I'm asking it, I'm requesting it. It's not, if it was, Pete out in lumber, So Pete up at the registers, if he had a heart attack, we would put that on there if he asked. No question at all. If he wanted the sign to read, hey, Pete had a heart attack, Pete had a stroke, we're looking to raise some money for him. We do that blindly, no problem. So why wouldn't we put the information out that I have depression? Why are we hiding that? And I was as polite as I could in that communication, but I was really kind of ticked off by it. Thankfully, the HR understood my point and contacted the store, and sure enough, the sign got changed. And I don't know that affected anybody as far as their thinking about depression. I don't know if it made people not want to give because they don't think, hey, depression, hey, that's not a real thing. He just needs to cheer up. But I want to believe that it didn't hurt the situation, hurt the cause enough that it would outweigh the potential benefits of what just having those few words up on a board could mean. I want to believe it forced people to think. Maybe it forced them to think back to their interactions with me, and I'm sure there was some, I can't believe that. Maybe it forced people to say, oh my gosh, yeah, why didn't we see that? And again, maybe it it makes a couple people feel a little stronger, a little more resolute in acknowledging their situation. And, I'd like to think it helped somebody take their situation a little more seriously. Maybe it helps someone else to maybe open up to a friend of theirs and say, hey, here's this story about this guy at work, and this is what he did. And, hey, I want to tell you a little bit about me. So, I don't know that any of that happened, but the opportunity, the possibility was there. So it was something very, very important to me that information went out. So, listening to the folks at the program and talk about this, I'm a little bit embarrassed to say I didn't speak up and tell them this story, and I probably should have, and not as a way to admonish them or try to get them to change their mind, but just to get them to think a little bit that, old saying is, knowledge is power, and it is, and getting more voices out there will bring mental illness into a more normalized state in society, and to a point where we can talk about it. And if we can talk about it, more people are aware of it. And if it become, if we recognize that the number of people who have some form of mental illness, then we tear down those stigmas. We can maybe influence, media and news outlets when, somebody goes and, horrifically, opens fire in a school, in a mall, someone who crashes a plane, someone who, whatever the catastrophe might be, human caused, and we don't see the headline the day after, so-and-so shooter was depressed, so-and-so shooter was bipolar or whatnot. And while I understand that that's factual information being reported by the news, that shouldn't be the story. That should be, maybe that's buried deep in, not buried, that's a wrong word, but maybe that's placed farther along in the article, that, hey, so-and-so did this, much like you might say, hell, I don't know, he has blue eyes. We need to stop seeing mental illness as a major cause, if not the cause, for some of the really bad things that people do. And I understand that this gets tricky. This gets so if we can just get the conversation going out there, the better off everybody will be. Those who currently have mental illness and acknowledge it, those who have it and don't acknowledge it, those who don't even understand that they have some form of mental illness. So I guess, I understand that not everybody can do this. Not everybody who has a mental illness, who has depression, can come right out and say that. It's difficult. It can be scary. But please think about it and understand that it is important if you have the ability to do this, to let people know. I mean, going back to other medical illnesses, if you had a heart attack, would you keep that secret? If you had a stroke, would you not tell folks that you had a stroke? So if you can, put your voice, put your name out there, even if it's just with your friends. Give it a try. There is some kind of therapeutic value to talking about it. Keeping it all bundled up inside of you to yourself can make it harder, can make it feel like a bigger burden to carry. So, we're all different, and it's up to you, the individual person, what you're comfortable with doing, what you're comfortable with sharing and saying. But that's my take on it, and I'm very happy and pleased that I did that, and I encourage you all to do that. It's kind of a short analogy. My daughters and I will we read books simultaneously, and then we talk, once a week, once every other week, something like that, about what we've read so far. Hey, let's read up to chapter 7 and then talk about it. It's kind of a bonding experience. And my 12-year-old and I we're reading, or just finished reading, Tuesdays with Morrie by Mitch Albom. And for those of you who don't know that story, Morrie was the college professor of Mitch Albom, renowned, acclaimed sports writer. And a decade and a half after Mitch Albom graduated from college and went on, and he was living his life, trying to make money, things like that, lost touch with who was his favorite college professor. He was watching TV one night or something and saw that there was a quick story about Morrie. He had ALS and was in the process of watching his body deteriorate as the disease slowly took over his body from the feet up. So Mitch was struck by this. It was kind of an awakening moment for him. And so he went out to visit him. And so the book goes through, and Tuesdays were their day. Every Tuesday, Mitch would fly out to Northeast somewhere and spend time talking with Morrie. And so we get to know him. We get to know what they talk about. One of the major ideas, I think, that came out of it from Morrie's side was that he didn't hide the fact that he was ill. He didn't shy away. He knew it was a death sentence. He knew it was going to be a long process, but he wanted his story out there. He wanted people to understand, hey, this is what it's like to be sick. Hey, this is what it's like to be dying. But at the same time, he wanted to share his wisdom, his knowledge with others, anybody who would be willing to listen. I guess you could argue he did it for the notoriety, but he clearly didn't do it for money. It doesn't seem like he took any money. He did interviews on Nightline or Dateline or whatever, Tom Brokaw maybe, and it doesn't seem like he took any money for any of these things. So he wasn't trying to get anything out of it other than sharing with others. And I get that this is a different story somewhat to mental illness, but maybe not so much. I mean, here was a guy who was essentially dying in public, and he didn't shy away from it. And here we are with depression or whatnot, and we are suffering. And why can't we share some of that with our loved ones? And then maybe through that allows us to feel more comfortable talking about it with people farther outside our home, our friends, maybe acquaintances, coworkers, things like that. Communicating, getting our story out there is important. It's important to everybody involved. So what's going to happen now is I'm going to step on off of my soapbox, high horse, whatever it is. Just know that I appreciate all of you who are listening. And at the very least, hopefully I kind of made you think a little bit. And I hope to hear from you. Let's make this a two-way street, and let me know. I guess I haven't mentioned it before, but yeah, anything that you send me, any emails, tweets, Twitterers, tweetcastic, I don't know. Anything you send me will be held in confidence, even just down to just your name, first name. I won't use that on a show. I won't use that in reference to someone else. I'm not asking you to tell me all your dark, deepest secrets or feelings, but reach out if you'd like. It would probably benefit us both. So for now, thanks for listening. Hello, it's Saturday, March 26th, 2016, and as